Hi guys. So I'm doing a series of little videos with questions that people have been asking me in class. So this one is to do with why can't I balance? Lots of people ask this question. It's definitely a question that I like to ask myself on a regular basis. So balancing in yoga is a tricky one. Obviously because firstly I think people don't like to fall over, and so I think we're already sort of worried about the balance coming up in the yoga practice, because we don't want to fall over. It's a physical manifestation, a physical act of falling and failing in the human psyche, which obviously we know it's not that, but humans and failing seem to be a regular reoccurring issue on this planet, and the yoga practice, specifically in balances, tends to give you that feeling right up front, right there, right then, and it's like, shit, I've failed at that balance. And it's, I suppose it's a symbol of the fact that we don't like to fall down. And that's the beauty of yoga, is it shows up things about yourself. It shows up things about, I suppose, triggers as a human being, things that trigger your reactions. And balancing definitely triggers a reaction, which is the absolute beauty of a balance, because it enables you to move past that reaction and help yourself out in daily life as well. And so I think one of the reasons is people are trying too hard to actually move into the balance. So you've already prepped yourself, your psyche's prepped yourself for the fact that, shit, I might actually fall over here. And so you try so hard, and when you try so hard, you actually become really rigid, and you don't have that flow of energy moving through the body as you would if you were trying a little bit less. Sounds like a weird thing to say, but because we're fearful of the balance and fearful of falling over, sometimes we try too hard. And when we try too hard, our body stiffens up. And there's a nice little sort of, let's call it a Chinese proverb, that goes, the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. So basically, when you allow your body to move in a balance a little bit, whether that's with the breath or, allowing the breath to give you a little bit of buoyancy, a little bit of fluidity to the movement, it stops the muscles physically tensing up, it stops the mind from tensing up and overthinking, creating anxiety around the posture, and allows you to become that bamboo that bends, basically, and not that oak that resists. So it allows you to stay in your balance with a little bit more stability, because you're firstly giving yourself some stillness in the mind. You're not worrying about whether you fall over or not, and you're just breathing into it naturally, which allows stability to come into the practice. So the first thing is probably the reason you're struggling to balance is because you're trying too hard, and you're caring too much about falling over, when after all it's only yoga. We're only doing some moves on a mat. It's really not a problem when we fall over. In fact, I think it's really good for the core to start to wobble quite a lot in your balances. It starts to use all your stabilising muscles, your intrinsic foot muscles, and that is what generates the balance, is that ability for the body to move in and out of its centre of gravity. And your body starts to sort of adjust that centre of gravity accordingly, and that's what builds the strength in the body, that's what builds the strength in the balances. So don't necessarily see it as a bad thing. Being sort of afraid in the balances and trying too hard. Another one is holding the breath. So a lot of people, again, probably because there's the fear around the balances, we tend to hold our breath as we go into the balance, and it's like, okay, I'm coming into, Natarajasana, I'm coming into dancer pose. I'm just going to hold my breath for whatever amount of meant to be breaths I'm in this pose for, and hopefully that means that I'll stay still. But it's the same thing as the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. So if you are not giving yourself a little bit of movement, a little bit of flow into that stability and the balance, then you're going to become rigid. And the breath makes us non-rigid. The breath makes us fluid. That's why we work with the breath through yoga, because it allows the movement, it allows the muscles to relax, it allows warmth and heat and energy to oxygenate through the body, and leaves us feeling calm, and the body physically relaxes. So yeah, I mean, you can only imagine like a big, tall, strong old tree that's got the trunk that's rigid as anything, and then a little sapling, and a tsunami of water comes and possibly knocks over the stronger, rigid trunks, and those little saplings will just go boing back up again. And I always think if you generate this flexibility through the breath in yoga, the flexibility, the breath creates flexibility in the body, it creates movement, it creates flow. And imagine in your balances, when you're holding the breath, you'll become this sort of stiff tree that has no room for movement, and anything's going to knock it over. So yeah, don't be too serious in your poses, number one. It's just a pose. Don't worry or have fear about falling out of the balances, and the less you fear of falling out of the balances, the more you'll be able to balance. It's just one of those sod's law things, right? And again, use the breath. So using the breath is a really, really important thing during your balances. So whenever and move with each tiny breath, allow movement. Movement expands the body. Movement allows you to ground your energy and move it out of the center space so that you can find that center of gravity. And you can find that balance by just tilting and moving with the breath. And then another thing is sometimes we have imbalances in the body. So for example, I've got one of my ankles which from a climbing accident has seized up quite a bit, and I don't have the flexibility in it that I possibly once had. And so I tend to balance on one side for a little bit longer than on the other side, and I challenge that side a little bit longer to find balance within my body. So maybe thinking about if you've got one side that's a little weaker, maybe you've had an injury, maybe you just have a stronger body side like lots of us do. Think about working on that weaker body side and actually physically balancing it out. So maybe holding tree pose, Vikrasana, on your dodgy side for 5 to 10 breaths longer than you would on your non-dodgy side, if that's something to describe it as. Yeah, so figuring out your imbalances physically and working on those. Breathe, and don't be fearful of moving in and out of a balance. Yeah, try not to tense up. Allow the body to be soft and buoyant and at peace. And I think lastly is, where is your mindset whilst you're in this balance? Balance is a practice of presence, and obviously yoga is a practice of presence. It's a practice of mindful movement to stop the fluctuations of the head, to stop the fluctuations of the mind. So we move in the body through these very present and alignment-based postures to stop the mind from constant, incessant chit-chat, which is never going to stop, but it stills it. It helps to still it because we've got our focus on something else, something mindful, something present. And balance is a massively you see where your mind is in the balance. So if you're having a bit of a challenging day in the head and your head's scattered and you're all over the place, you will find it a lot more challenging to balance, because you're not present in the balance. And balance is about breathing, it's about presence, it's about focusing on where the body's moving in comparison to another body part, etc, etc. So yeah, if you're having a little bit of an imbalanced day in the head, you're gonna see it on the mat. That's just yoga. And yoga has these ways of bringing up daily the different things you're feeling in the day. That's why one practice the day before, you might feel fabulous and you might just flow through your practice with balance and ease and strength and flexibility. And the next day you might be like a big lead weight that can't do anything and your mind's all over the shop. So balancing will be much more challenging then. But sometimes that's a little bit when you need it most, but you sort of don't want to do it most. So yeah, they're the sort of main 4 things that I would say with balancing, is to don't take it too seriously. Don't try too hard. That's under the same bracket, because your body will tense up, and when you tense, you'll fall. Breathe. Cliche yoga thing to say, but breathing allows the muscles to relax, it allows the mind to relax, it stops anxiety in the body around a pose. And when you relax, the body naturally adjusts accordingly. It's real, it's true. Try it out, breathe in your balances. So you're this sort of nice tiny movements of a little sapling tree. And maybe figure out your physical imbalances, thirdly, whether you've got one side that's weaker than the other, and work on strengthening that one side. And lastly, just notice where your mindset is and don't judge it. So if your mindset's not having a great day, if you feel imbalanced in the psyche, it's probably quite it's going to be quite apparent on your mat that you're imbalanced physically. Okay, that's fine. We have these days. We're human, and that's why we just keep coming back to the mat and trying again the next day. So they're my little tips on balance, guys. I hope you have a lovely day, and balance well or not, doesn't matter.